We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated. Secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
What if our body's pain or other chronic symptoms aren't actually the problems themselves, but a message of something else going on deeper within us? I never used to be the person who would admit any kind of weakness. And sometimes I still have to work on it, but I feel like I've come a really long way here. And because I was able to finally find solutions and resources to really help me and balance things out, not in like a, 50-50%, like perfectly balanced, everything's, exactly the same, not in an unrealistic kind of balancing way, but like in the sense of like a continuous harmonizing way. And I was able to stop like muscling my way through my life. You know what I mean? We're just like forcing. And if you listen to one of my earlier episodes earlier on in the show last year, I talk about this idea of effortless intention. And one of the examples is we create a really, really tight fist. And that tension we feel and that pain you feel in your hand is like that gripping that we have on our life. And so that's kind of the thing that I've been able to avoid and let go of in multiple areas of my life. And this episode is really, really, really important to me. Similarly to the one I did on VCD or vocal cord dysfunction with laryngospasm. If you listened to that one, it's all about how our body gives us signals. And so this one will be a little bit similar, going deeper and sharing new things I've learned since then. And since going through additional health challenges and experiences. And how I came to the point of actually being able to say like, okay, this isn't right. I actually need help in order to keep moving forward and keep going. And I mean, I didn't say this specifically, but it's like that idea of like, letting the world know you don't have it all together, you don't have all the answers, or you're not perfectly wrapped up in a, beautiful box with a pretty little bow with no flaws or um, areas that you need help in. So I'll start with a breaking point. Like, how did I get to that point last year? And when was it that I finally had enough? I was actually one day sitting on my couch and I just couldn't like process information for a moment. Like I just sat on my couch and normally under stress, my natural action tendencies are to go to fight or flight. So I typically either, fight the problem or I run and flee. I never freeze. Like that is not how I act. That's not a behavior of mine. And I feel like that's what was happening is I was just frozen on my couch, unable to move, unable to think or really even process like what was happening, just like sitting straight up, looking straight ahead, not really doing or thinking anything, which is like really scary. if you've ever been to a point like that where you almost lose your functioning from just like it's almost like the system overload. And that's part of the reason why this is so important to me to share with you is because I want to make sure that anyone listening to this and going through physical struggles or symptoms or pain in their body that they feel like is holding them back from achieving what they want to achieve or spending their time how they want to spend it or reaching certain goals, I really, really hope that this helps you find clarity, advocate for yourself, find the answers you need, find the gumption and motivation and lift, if you will, to break through the walls we've created for ourselves and move forward in a way that feels really, really good to you. And I had signs for years and years. I mean, going all the way back to early teenage years, being a competitive dancer, but usually I would just kind of add it all up to, oh, well, that's from, you know, falling from practicing certain jumps, or that's from different dance injuries, or, I just, was basically like abusive to my body. And I would just, chalk it up to that and blame it on that. And um, I didn't really think a second thought about it because my mindset was always like push through, drive through, like just, muscle, like I was saying earlier, like that gripping through, like relying on my willpower, my, all this like really pushing through. It's like this like just like tight kind of aggressive energy. And but then what I never admitted to others, at least not to many, was that I would crash all the time. And my mom would even point out to me numerous times, like, this is a pattern. Like when you are, doing all of these things, then you crash. It's this up and down, pattern that you have. And I just kind of dismissed it, I guess. I thought like, oh no, well, and it's admitting weakness, right? Like you don't want to admit that you have a weakness, because then you'll get kicked out of the tribe and maybe not survive. So it's kind of this, like it's kind of prideful. It's related to survival. And honestly, I had been to the doctor. I had been to the ER numerous times in screaming amounts of pain, and they couldn't help me. They didn't know what was wrong, and they either would misdiagnose me with different things that the solutions never helped, or they would tell me that there's nothing they can do, which is really disheartening when you are in pain, like 11 or 12 out of 10, right? Like just unbearable amount of pain. And the doctors are sitting there saying, like, you're fine, or telling you all these different things. Like, if you have listened to the VCD episode, you know that they misdiagnosed me with asthma and allergies and acid reflux and all these things, like, until I finally found that it was vocal cord dysfunction. I was able to actually get help and find a solution to move forward in a way that really, really helped my quality of life. So they would do scans and ultrasounds and x-rays and all these things, take my blood, do all these tests, and they'd point out issues with my spleen and just tell me to be careful and take omega and don't bump it, don't rupture it, like all those things. that I did, but it also created this level of fear to where when it got really bad, I actually believed I could die because that's what the doctors told me. Like they said, if you bump this while it's enlarged, which is also true, like when at times it was enlarged, that's still true, but that also wasn't the bulk of my problems, you know? So they just instilled all of this fear in me that really made me fear for my life for years. A good friend of mine, Eric Collette, who is interviewed in one of our former episodes as well, he calls it sick care versus healthcare. And I really like this idea because when I did finally get help and they showed me all these preventative things and things I can do to take care of my health, I'm like, why didn't they teach, like, why don't they teach this to everyone? Why doesn't everybody know this? And that's what he called, sick care is like waiting until it's too late or you're already struggling and you just can't even function and you need the help versus what he and his practice and team are working to do at A Mind for All Seasons, which is preventative health and like really getting to the root cause and helping you live optimally for as long as possible. Like that idea of longevity, which is really, really cool and really exciting. And a huge part of why I am part of his membership and I love talking with him and his medical team on what I can keep doing and trying in different ways. And they've really been able to help me so far. So that this idea of healthcare, if you are to use that term and how it's supposed to be interpreted as like preventative and like longevity and optimization of how we feel. But for years, like I mean, even going back to the early teen years, like I couldn't sleep without multiple pillows. I still to this day sleep with many pillows. Like I don't think that I'll ever stop doing that. Number one, it's super comforting and soothing and supportive for my body, but also I've done it for so long that it feels really uncomfortable to sleep without it. And I actually learned how to do like a really good setup from when I was 15 and working as a CNA at a nursing home. And what we would do is we'd turn the resident on their side, with their knees bent. So like imagine how you sleep on your side. We'd have a pillow under their head, like normal. Um, we'd put a pillow between their knees that's supporting from the knee to the ankle so that there's no, rubbing or bumping or anything like that. And then a pillow kind of shoved under their back. So like how I do this for myself is like I lay the pillow, you know, behind me, but then I kind of, lift up a bit, pull it toward me, and then lay back down so that my back is supported by that pillow. And then we do another pillow that goes between the arms. This also helps keep the body in a good position too, so you're not at like weird angles and kinks. Sometimes that happens when you sleep on your side without that. And I also couldn't sit or stand for too long without a lot of pain or numbing and tingling and things like that that I really never questioned, but then later found out that just living with that amount of discomfort in the body and pain isn't actually normal and definitely wasn't normal for my age then and also wasn't normal for my age now. Even things like doing my hair, like having my arms up overhead to wash my hair, dry my hair, straighten my hair, all the things I was doing to like get ready and, create this look was also creating a lot of discomfort in my body and a lot of pain. And oftentimes after a shower, I would be so exhausted I couldn't do much. So I very early on, like going back to high school, I moved my showers to nighttime because I knew that after a shower I'd be like so wiped out and that sounds really weird, but I would be so exhausted that I would need to just like go to bed. Over the years, my workouts grew harder too, and I would complain and whine and um that it was uncomfortable and I didn't want to do it. And then I wouldn't do it for a while. And then I'd do like a really big hard workout. And then I'd be so in so much pain that I couldn't move and not be able to get to the gym for a while again. So that inconsistency really did not help me, but also neither did like the overdoing of like working out for 4 to 5 hours, which had been normal as a competitive dancer, but over the years that became harder and harder to keep up with. But I just kept hiding the pain. I didn't talk to many others about it because I didn't even know why I was so uncomfortable in my body. And again, I thought it was weak. I would only talk about pain when I thought I had an explanation. So when my spleen was enlarged, that's an easy explanation. My spleen's enlarged, my, left rib is in pain. And, that's, why I'm not in gym class. And well, of course, you have doctor's notes too that excuse you, but the, you explain it to your peers. They're like, where were you? Right. So all those different levels of explanations. Or when I fell and my back was injured, I would, incorporate that to the fall. And I could talk about ankle pain when I sprained my ankle because there was a really easy to understand explanation. Also, over time, particularly in the last couple of years, I started to do my hair less. And really, it was just because it was so painful for my arms to be up over my head, but also because it just took energy. Like it took a lot of effort on my part to make that happen. And I learned that when I chose to spend my energy on that, then I didn't have energy for other things. So it was really just a choice, a trade to spend my energy elsewhere. But regardless of that, I did continue to push myself as much as I could. Like I think there was like a gradual, you know, downgrade over the years. And I did learn to not work as long of hours. Like working until midnight wasn't reasonable. And starting work at 4 or 5, 6 a.m. when I'm going until night again wasn't reasonable. And I later learned that those crashes I was having were called pain tax. So that's kind of the tax you pay from overdoing. And there are a lot of strategies around pacing and moderation that I am not the expert in. I'm still learning and practicing. So if this is something you have experienced or something similar that's been persistent without a lot of answers, like this idea of pacing, or if you have, if you're working with like autoimmune or any other chronic illnesses, pacing and moderation have been huge. So those are definitely something I recommend to look into and research and practice. It's not something we can just hear and learn about and then do it. It's an ongoing continuation, and I still regularly meet with my pain coach, and we work on that. And she continues to remind me, like, yeah, you overdid it there, or here's where I think you can better kind of spread things out. And it's not like spreading things out to where you don't get things done. You're still doing them. You're still actually you almost do more, right? Over the long term. Like this is where productivity comes in, is like how do we balance what we're doing and where we're spending our energy and alternate things and do it in a way where we actually have sustained energy and feel good throughout the entire process so that we can keep going. We don't have to stop as often. We don't have to take as long of breaks. I think another reason I didn't really question it or complain too much was because, you grow up around pain. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, they, moan and groan when they stand or sit and talk about being in pain. I worked in the nursing home, like I said, where people were in pain all the time. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, I guess this is just part of life. Even later down the road, I had managed a massage clinic where I saw all kinds of different pain from all kinds of different people. And so again, there's that theme. And I had my own ways to manage my comfort levels. I did yoga, I got regular massage, especially working at the massage clinic where you get discounts. So it was very nice. And again, I thought it was about how hard I had been on my body over the years and that there was nothing I could do about it. And none of the doctors have ever really given me answers that had really helped. So I kind of almost just given up. When I finally did receive my diagnoses last year at the Mayo Clinic, I spent about 5 weeks there last year. 2 weeks was my workup, kind of doing all the tests, really kind of their data collection on me. And then the other 3 weeks was a program that I went to at the PRC, which stands for the Pain Rehabilitation Clinic. And there's, you know, some controversy around like, a diagnosis. It's not that I needed a diagnosis for anyone else or for anyone else to know, but having one and receiving that diagnosis gave me like a starting point of like, okay, here's what you're dealing with. And then from there, I could start actually getting help and like I talked about, like pacing, moderation, things like that, absolutely improved my quality of life, just like it did when I found out that my breathing difficulties were from vocal cord dysfunction, not any of the other misdiagnoses I had had prior, so that I actually knew what to do to work on that. Even on the airplane on the way to the Mayo Clinic, because I, now reside in Colorado and I'm from Minnesota. So of course I grew up, knowing about and not living far from the Mayo Clinic. So I flew there and even on the plane, my legs, as they do on the airplane or driving, they would throb and fall asleep. And I like shift and kind of reshuffle in my seat, but I would never really be very comfortable. And I share these specific examples because if you can identify with any of them, or if even me sharing one makes you think of something else you've struggled with, another symptom, I hope that it helps you, like it's like a trigger for you to then know where to look or know, you know, how to look into the mind-body connection and find other ways to get help versus traditional medicine, which is absolutely needed and so, so, so important, but is a lot of times more focused on like keeping us alive and surviving, not thriving, right? It's where integrative and functional medicine come into play, where we're actually like looking forward and using everything from traditional medicine, plus then how to be preventative and be proactive and aim for longevity and feeling as good as possible for as long as possible. That's another reason I've been bringing on, you know, doctors and pain specialists and other people who talk about our health, because without our health, we absolutely are not going to achieve our goals because all that time gets wasted. Like we talk about time sucks. The spinning out trying to find answers and fix things and going down the wrong rabbit hole can absolutely waste so much of our time and energy, stealing from what matters most to us. And the doctors even told me that they were planning for surgery to remove my spleen right before I headed to the Mayo Clinic. Multiple times, this was offered, but it got to the most serious point right before I went to the Mayo. And something in my gut just told me not to follow that advice. And when I got to the Mayo Clinic, I'm so glad I did. So like talk about time that would have been lost or talk about time saved, right? By not having to go through that surgery, not having to do additional time off of work, not having to recover. And then, of course, going forward, then you live without like your spleen is your immunity. So the point is listen to your gut and your body and ask don't be afraid to ask twice or ask somebody else or ask another specialist because it turned out my doctors were wrong about the trajectory all those years. And when we don't listen to our bodies can physically stop us. Like I was saying, I was frozen on the couch and just shocked that that's where I was. And I didn't understand. And the part of me that had, muscled through and struggled through for so long didn't even know like how to operate not doing it that way. Like I remember being a dancer and you have these high jumps and you land, and sometimes you don't land exactly right, or you just land so hard that you break a toe. And what do? We keep on dancing. Years later, going on a hike for work, I sprained my ankle, and it's a bunch of executive men who are, big and tough and masculine and all these things. And I was not, for one, going to show any weakness around them. And so I just kept hiking, making the sprain a lot worse. So this is where not listening to our body, really, it comes with real consequences. So fast forward to me last year, here I was, this ambitious girl, this driven woman, suddenly learning how to moderate and pace myself. I mean, what? I didn't even know that word, pacing. And I had always known that, you know, movement would usually help my aches and pains throughout my body. But what I didn't know was where my limits were. So I would do too much. And also, I want to stop here too, because we don't need to go back and ever like shame ourselves. Because for me, muscling through is what kept me safe and it got me to the point I needed to do. And it helped me survive things I needed to get through, to do certain things in my life. But I had to realize that I was safe now. I was safe enough to start doing that deeper healing that my body was screaming for. Maybe the wheels on your wagon are a little bit wobbly, and if we're not listening to that, the wheels can fall off and stop rolling altogether. And a lot of times this muscling through, or when we say yes, when our body is actually saying no, or maybe our heart is saying no, this muscle through mentality can also sometimes be a way to avoid. Maybe we are avoiding emotional discomfort or avoiding our thoughts or something difficult going on in our life or something that just feels heavy or big and hairy or unachievable or undoable or unfaceable, right? So in that sense, sometimes we say yes quickly to other things like activities and movement and whatever, and doing more to alleviate other discomforts. Maybe it's the discomfort of judgment for saying no, too, is another one. And I also want to caveat it with pushing forward is not always a bad thing. I mean, there are seasons to run and seasons to be slow. But when we push chronically, emotional or physical pain or discomfort in some form is going to come up. It starts creating anxiety, depression, right? Like all these things come from these misalignments within ourselves. I mean, I know I ran full speed my whole life and I was avoiding pain and discomfort in my body, but also avoiding my emotional pain from things I never faced or dealt with. And I allowed it to build this irritability, the annoyances, the anger, the anxiety, the depression. It reared up like an angry horse instead of me outrunning it. It just got bigger. And long before any of this happened over the last couple of years, I already knew that my brain was powerful enough to get rid of things like travel sickness, insomnia, etc. Like I had so many things that I had already accomplished using my big, beautiful, incredibly smart brain, which you also have. I unlearned panic attacks. I literally, so I was really struggling with panic attacks, like debilitating levels. And a former therapist from years and years ago shared with me this big, thick textbook, and I read a whole section on panic attacks. And just by knowing, this is where knowledge is power, just by knowing that I literally cannot die from a panic attack alone, I never again had a panic attack. It never again disrupted my life. But for some reason, I still never let my body stop and rest and heal after wounds, injuries, even emotional trauma after my divorce. I just kept working and worked 10 times harder. And I remember people I was working with asking me, like, are you sad? Are you mad? Like, are you okay? And I was just like, no, let's go. Like, let's build, let's do this. But of course, all of that pain and struggle showed up later when I started dating again, which of course, like we know now and we're talking about and learning, these things just don't go away. We cannot outrun them. And I'm saying this as someone who tried to outrun them for the majority of my life. And it wasn't just like a little bit of pain or one area. Like I had severe pain in my wrists, my left rib specifically, my shoulders, backs, legs, knees, ankles. Sometimes it was more mild. Sometimes it was so severe, I would just lay there and cry and not know what to do. And sometimes it moved all over my body, and I had no idea why. And that's one of the key things about neuroplastic pain is that when it moves or it's not consistent, you can say, aha, I see you. It's neuroplastic. This is coming from brain signals. It's still real pain. It's very real, but it's a signal from the brain. It's not structural. It's a wrong signal that the body is firing up all of this pain that you're having to deal with for no structural reason and not while healing from a physical thing. It's long after an injury should be better and gone and done with that you're still feeling that. My hips would be so excruciating. I remember in high school and we had to like run track and do running, any kind of running in gym class. And there were times I would just be hobbling because it hurt so bad. And of course, the gym teacher we had at the time would just yell and yell and yell. And I just kept going. And she said she'd fail us if we didn't keep going. So we just kept going. It's another example of just learning to keep pushing through. And when I would have chest pain, like particularly left chest pain, right? And through my left arm, I mean, we all know that's like the universal sign for a heart attack. So I was constantly thinking when I like throughout my early teen to young adult years or mid, you know, 20s to early 30s, constantly thinking I was having a heart attack, even though I wasn't. All I needed was to downregulate my nervous system so that my body could calm down and stop sending those signals. Because what happens is the more we react to those signals of pain or other symptoms, um, it can be accompanied with, things like nausea, dizziness, confusion, brain fog, headaches, migraines, IBS symptoms. So, maybe you're, having a lot of diarrhea or vomiting, right? And there's many more. It's like all these things that can happen when we react to them the same way I learned about reacting to a panic attack, it then gets worse. This happens with VCD too. The more my VCD is triggered, the more anxious I would get. And then the more my VCD would be triggered. It's like it's a never-ending negative cycle. So we have to stop, slow down, pause, breathe, take care of ourself, and relax our mind and body so that our nervous system can downregulate and realize, oh, okay, we're safe now. I can stop signaling. Or maybe if it doesn't stop, at least it doesn't get worse because our reaction to it can absolutely make it worse. And the goal is never to just like get rid of all these symptoms. Part of what they teach you is something called radical acceptance. So if you are familiar with that, you know exactly how amazing and horrifying and difficult that can be. I am still working on it. But the idea is that if you can fully, completely, and radically accept the condition of your body and your health, that not only does it not get worse, it can slowly dissipate over time, but it doesn't have to. You're just accepting that this is where you are, it's who you are, and that there's more to your life than your symptoms. And you make your life bigger. You make more. You make other things in your life more important than your symptoms. You don't make your health your full focus of everything that you're doing and thinking about and concentrating on and focusing on. Because here's the thing, when you have chronic conditions and chronic illness or symptoms, you can't treat them the way you would an acute health issue. If you break your ankle, absolutely go take care of that, right? You don't want to ignore it like I did for my injuries and keep going because that can also make it worse. Like when you have something acute, you may put your hands on the area that is injured or hurt to protect it, and that's okay. But when you start doing that for something that's chronic, you're signaling to the brain to give you more, and it gets worse. And that's why I was never getting better. I was actually getting worse. And this affected my ambitions through pain flare-ups and just things that I could do before I couldn't tolerate anymore. But once I got answers, I was done hiding. I was done trying to keep up some image of perfection, which, hi, newsflash, none of us have achieved that or will ever achieve this idea of perfection where like nothing is wrong with us and we never have any problems and we don't have to face any difficulties, right? Last year I started telling everybody that it was the year of shedding for me because I was shedding all these ideas of who I was supposed to be and these expectations that I had put on myself. I started completely embracing and loving my beautiful, big, thick, curly head of hair. I started loving the face I had without a whole bunch of makeup on it to make me look different, which, okay, I still love my makeup. Let's be really clear. I love to get dressed up and dolled up and do all the things, but more as a form of artistic expression and fun and creativity, not as a way to try to make myself more worthy or meet any sort of image that I'm supposed to meet. Because my body had literally crumbled beneath me, and I couldn't hold that false image together anymore. I had told myself and everybody else for so long that everything's fine and things are normal and it's not a big deal. But my body, my physical body was keeping a very different scorecard. And it's a big part of why that book that everybody loves, The Body Keeps the Score, is so important. The body literally keeps score. And I had no idea. By the way, if you haven't read that book, highly recommend, but prepare yourself. If you have PTSD, just be prepared. But it is so transformative. That brings me to what causes these kinds of chronic illnesses, conditions, symptoms, pain, mental health? Well, the answer to this one really depends on who you talk to and who you ask, right? It's going to vary. Some people will say that we don't know. Some people will say there's not enough evidence to really prove one thing or another. But what we do know is that high levels of stress break down your body's system, its immune system, its central nervous system, how it functions, how it operates. It does not bring us to an optimal level of health like we're talking about. I lived a lot of my life in extreme hypervigilance, and I would be lying if I told you I had cured myself of this. But I have come so far, so far. And if you've been working on this and still struggle, give yourself grace and know that the work is never done. So the fact that you're not quote unquote there yet does not mean anything bad about you. Keep going, keep your head up, don't give up, pause when you need to, and then get up and keep going. Do not give up on yourself. You are your most valuable asset you will ever have. You are your own human that you are responsible for. Like a parent is responsible for a child, this is your person to take care of. And I got that idea from a podcast Matthew Hussey was interviewed on, where he talked about self-love in a way that it blew my mind. It was on Lewis Howe's podcast, if you want to go listen. And I loved this idea that, like, you are this human you're responsible for. It's up to you to take care of you. That's our job. So I was always in fight or flight, constantly looking for danger around every corner. And when our system stays in high alert from accumulative trauma, and whether, whether it's just one really big incident or multiple incidences over a period of time, maybe months, maybe years, right? Maybe a majority of your life, it affects our body eventually. Like, we cannot avoid that. Remember, the body is keeping score, like the book says. Whether we're ready or not, it doesn't wait for us to say, okay, or hold on, it's coming. The connection between our mind and body get jammed, and they forget how to differentiate between the bad guys and the good guys. So everything starts to look dangerous. It explains why I was closed off to so many people out there and ran from people and situations when I grew uncomfortable. I was behaving incredibly avoidant. I never really stuck around anywhere for long. I left my hometown as soon as I was old enough to, and I've moved to many states and started my life over many times. And even as things got better, I still would find myself in different situations, even if they're a little bit better than the last. I still found myself in situations that were not exactly healthy or helpful or in any way helping me heal from prior trauma. It was only reinforcing it and proving that it was true, and proving that these old beliefs I had were still true. And while we don't want to ruminate and fester and just spend all this time focusing on the pain, we also at some point have to admit that it's there if we have been avoiding it. And it was really scary when I found that out because I was like, gosh, I've been spending my whole life running from this to then just stop and turn around and face the huge monster that had continued to grow over the years. I thought like, how like big will it be? Like, will I survive? Right? Like you start to have these catastrophic thoughts, but it's okay. It's okay. We don't have to suffer in silence. We don't have to just learn to quote unquote live with it or ignore it or fight it because it's just not going to work long term. One of the best things one of the doctors told me at the Mayo Clinic was she looked at me and said, "You have been through so much. And not only are you surviving, but you're thriving. And that is amazing." She said, "You've been a warrior at fighting this pain. Now it's time to be a warrior at slowing down and taking care of you." Whew, blew me away. And I still have to like process that because that doesn't feel like a very warrior thing to slow down, right? Like that doesn't sound very like tough and strong and important or impressive in any way. But it is bigger and bolder than we ever thought. And the simple changes we make can have the biggest differences in our lives. Like I learned I can take a bath in 10 minutes or less, and that's really all I need to get my muscles relaxed. I don't need to find an hour to get in the bathtub or even 30 minutes. I don't even need that. We don't need all of this time to make something worth it. If you don't have an hour to go to the gym, go for 10 minutes, go for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Like it's okay to break it down and still do something to take care of yourself than to do nothing. And I'm telling you that 10 minutes most nights before bed, whew, that is enough for an amazing night's sleep. It can also be really easy to think like, oh, why me? Or why is my life like this? Why did I have to go through all these hard things and, not start ahead like other people? But this is your journey. And everything we're learning is part of our life's journey curriculum. This is our syllabus to our life. This is what we can follow to take care of us. And honestly, it's a gift because we get to become a healthier and more knowledgeable human than we ever would have without any of these challenges. We get to learn that the cues from our mind and body can let us be curious and find solutions and really listen. The same way your gas gauge on your car dings when it's low and you go fill it up. The body is trying to do the same thing. It's our job to listen. And I had disassociated for so long and so many years that it was pretty challenging to face that pain, like I was saying, and drop back into my own body after not really, paying attention to it or really giving it any love. Even when I would, work out or exercise or do yoga, I was usually like cramming through it and doing it to, fix quote unquote my body or my appearances, not out of love. And sometimes we realize like it's all so much more connected than we thought. And I know I keep referencing back to the vocal cord dysfunction episode, the VCD episode, but same thing there. All these weird things I was struggling with and having issues with ended up all being related to that one thing. And same thing with chronic illness and an oversensitized central nervous system. It all comes together finally after all those years of tackling one issue at a time or treating things like acute and separate issues. You can bring it all together and take care of it all in one fell swoop, day after day, moment after moment. So if you're experiencing anything, even remotely like this, it's okay to admit it, especially to yourself. It's not weakness. Even things like spending nights on the bathroom floor, blacking out and getting sick and being way too sick to move. Even that is not weakness. It is just a signal from your body. We don't have to muscle through. We don't have to do everything we can to hide all of these struggles or symptoms because we don't want to look like you can't handle anything. Because if we don't face those signals, we can't solve them. We can't help them. The first step is the awareness and the admittance. We literally cannot solve anything if we're not willing to say it out loud, especially to ourselves. And it's not all in your head, and it's also not all in your body. Sometimes the pain or illness is something no one else can see, and that's still okay. Sometimes our brains create long-lasting pain and other symptoms so that we don't have to deal with other scarier experiences or emotions that we've avoided or swept under the rug. Sometimes the pain feels safer than the emotions from the trauma, but it's not. It's just that avoidance. And the point is, you're not alone. You don't have to keep it all together. You're allowed to slow down, ask for help, say no, be who you are at your core, and do what you can and what you want to. Remember, I said at the beginning, this is about spending our time how we want to spend it. And if you are struggling and haven't found any answers, you're also not alone. So we can continue to notice, to let things go, to observe our life, and to wear things loosely. We don't have to go through life in super tight clothing, metaphorically, in our mind, all stressed out and gripping, like we talked about earlier. But we can be a loose, flowy, beautiful, colorful. Maybe it's a silk sheer top that you're wearing and it's flowy and comfortable and you're wearing it loosely and you go through life much more relaxed, much more at ease, and you're able to listen to those signals and take care of your body and ultimately spend your time how you want to spend it, reach those amazing, incredible goals you have set for yourself, and have an amazing time getting there. I really, 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 really hope that this helps. If this is anything remotely close to what you have dealt with, ask for help. Find the integrative medical professionals. Learn about the mind-body approach and take care of you. Take care of your person. That's you. I know you can do it. You are so strong, and I believe in you.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world, and as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.